Welcome to the Jali podcast. I'm your host, Melyssa Barrett. This podcast is for those who are interested in the conversation around diversity, inclusion, and equity. Each week, I'll be interviewing a guest who has something special to share or is actively part of building solutions in this space. Let's get started. I thought this week might be the perfect time to sit down with my own city's chief of police, who has 2 decades as an officer rising through the ranks through the Oakland Police Department. Chief Sekou Millington really underscored his commitment to the community in a number of assignments, including but not limited to community policing, where he worked to build and strengthen community police relationships, partnering with community leaders and stakeholders. He also worked in narcotics enforcement. He spent time undercover working to elicit drugs off the streets, investigations where he liaised with federal agencies such as DEA, FBI, ATF, the U.S. Marshals Service, and SWAT, where he served as an operator, team leader, then tactical commander. While assigned as the training section commander, Chief Millington served on the department's Force Review Board and Executive Force Review Boards, where he worked with other executive staff members to formulate strategies to keep the department at the cutting edge of contemporary policing strategies. Chief Millington served as an area commander in Area 1 in Oakland, which encompassed the West Oakland and downtown areas. And his final assignment with the Oakland Police Department was as the Internal Affairs Division Commander. He's a member of several local community organizations and national law enforcement organizations, including the Tracy Sunrise Rotary Club, the Tracy African American Association, the San Francisco Bay Area chapter of the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, or NOBLE, where he proudly serves as a 2-term chapter president. He's also a member of the International Association of Chiefs of Police, the California Police Chiefs Association, the FBI National Academy Association, and the Police Executive Research Forum, always looking for new methods to provide contemporary policing practices to the communities he serves. Additionally, Chief Millington attended the FBI National Academy, earned his Certificate of Achievement in Criminal Justice Education from the University of Virginia. He attended the Union Institute and University, where he earned his bachelor's degree in criminal justice and master's degree in organizational leadership. And he has what he calls a FIRST commitment, FIRST, to every citizen, business, and visitor to the city of Tracy. And it's based on principles of fairness, integrity, respect, service, and teamwork. And that he has done is really just showed some tremendous leadership since he's been in my city. He's really demonstrated his ownership of the mission and continues to provide, both he and his team, the Tracy community, just an amazing amount of community involvement. So I am excited this week, as I usually am, to talk to my own police chief, Sekou Millington. And I was there when he was sworn in, and, I'm just excited that you are here in the community making a difference. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure.
I've known you as long as I've been here. It's almost 3 years now, right? So
yes, day one. I wanted to make sure.
That's right.
But one of the things I usually start with is, if you could, my husband was a storyteller, so the Jali podcast is kind of a head nod to him as a professional storyteller, and everyone has a story. So I like to start out with you maybe telling us a little bit about how you were able to get to this place in your life and career.
Okay.
And because I know all I know is you started out in Oakland and you ended up in Tracy. So
okay, I'm happy to share the story. I happen to like storytelling. I think that's the best way to get a message across, right? So
yes.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share a few minutes, tell you a little bit about who I am and where I'm from, where I come from and what got me here.
Yes, Please.
Okay. Well, so again, thank you so much for having me here. Sekou Millington, super, super happy about my current position and the department that I'm working for. I had a very unique start to my law enforcement profession. I would even go well before that. I was born in South America. I was born in a small country on the east coast of South America, Georgetown, Guyana. And I love sharing that story because I come from, what's considered a third world country. Mm-hmm. Right now it's booming because of a huge oil find. So there's a big to do about, all of the growth going on there. But not that I'm rich now, but I'm very fortunate for the benefits and the advantages that I've been able to gain being an American citizen. So I came here at the age of 7. My family migrated to New York, where we came over the course of a number of years, and that sort of became our hub, our home in the U.S. before, maybe around my generation, we started branching off into a variety of states. But yeah, I came here as a resident alien. I wasn't born here. Like, I wasn't born with the advantages of a lot of young people that I talk to today. Just trying to make clear to them how fortunate they are, right? Yeah. I've been back twice since coming here since moving and migrating, becoming a citizen here twice, and the country hasn't changed a whole lot. Mm-hmm. And it's still a huge separation of the haves and the have-nots. And so, really, again, just sort of brought it all back to reality of how fortunate I am. Yeah. And not only how hard I worked to get here, but how fortunate I was to come across people who were willing to help me, right? Willing to mentor me, willing to show me that noble path on how to achieve my goals. And it really just comes from hard work, good moral upbringing. I was raised by a single mother. I watched her work 2 jobs, sometimes 2.5 jobs, while, as the eldest of 3 siblings, I was the eldest. I had 2 younger sisters. I was kind of the dad at home. My mom was my mom. She was my mother and my father, mm-hmm. And instilled in me the value of hard work and discipline and respect. And so, I don't take those things for granted. I don't take it lightly, the position that I'm in. And I always think back to, to my roots, my very humble roots. I'm truly blessed to be here. But what I've achieved is not unachievable. I've seen it time and time again by my mentors and the examples that I've followed. And, I hope to do the same for others.
Right. Well, how did you even get to Oakland then?
Yeah. Okay.
New York.
Yeah. So when I was about 17 years old, I was like at that pivotal moment of my life where I was kind of becoming a rebellious young man. I was always responsible, but it was, my mom wanted to see me do better. I had 2 uncles that I looked up to. Like I said, I was raised by a single mother, but my 2 uncles were in the military, lifelong military servants, right? One was in the Navy. He was stationed at Oak Knoll out of Oakland. And the other was in the Air Force. He was stationed down in Lompoc in LA, Southern California. Okay. My uncle offered me the opportunity to come out to California and live with him when I was at that moment where I'm trying to navigate life and
feel yourself.
Yeah, feel myself. And the opportunity presented itself. And it was probably the most pivotal moment in my life because it gave me an opportunity to get out of New York. It's like the concrete jungle, they call it. It's the city that never sleeps. It's very busy, very competitive. I've been more of an academic than a student. I'm 6'5" and a little heavier than I want to be right now. I won't say my weight, but I've always been, a stellar student. I like to study. I like science, history. And so, I was geared to go to college. That's what I wanted to do. And I didn't necessarily have that opportunity immediately in New York. So I moved to California with my uncle to continue my education. And it was then when I got here, I found, growing up in New York City, really the borough of Brooklyn, and not really seeing too many other places, you didn't really stray too far, into to Bronx and Bed-Stuy and the different places, you sort of grew up much like the inner city kids here. I worked in Oakland for 20 years. There's some kids who have never ventured beyond Oakland, have never gone to San Francisco. And I'll share some of that story when I was a 2-time president for Noble, where our goal was to introduce young inner city kids to things beyond Oakland. Like the world is a vast place. Across the bridge, there's sites, the Redwood Forest and theater, and just, 30 minutes away. They ordinarily wouldn't get to see and experience. And so we took that upon ourselves to bring that opportunity to take the kids out of the environment that they were in and show them that there was something different, and give them, plant that seed that you can do more than just be in this, from this place, about this place.
Right.
So I got that opportunity when I left New York and I went to California. I was like, wow, first of all, there's no snow. Oh, that's great. I'm not dealing with 4 seasons. I got beautiful sunny weather all the time, and it's extremely spacious, right?
Yeah. That's awesome.
It was definitely eye-opening to me, and I was going to take full advantage of it. So I was going to school. I was attending Chabot College and part-time doing some loss prevention work, believe it or not. And then I also dabbled in plumbing. I went through some trade work, working my hands. It was always probably more my thing. I wanted to be like an engineer or some sort of structural designer or builder or something, working with my hands, very hands-on. And so I wanted to go to school, kind of gear me in that direction. And then, while working as loss prevention, I actually had the opportunity to interact with police officers. Oh. They would come, take custody of individuals I detained and arrested for petty theft. And, I wrote good reports. I always thought myself as detailed. And I actually got myself into like some weird situations where they're like, geez, normally, security or loss prevention, they don't do that. And it's my job. No one's taking anything from this. This is my place. It's my place. So as I met the officers and I would have to write reports and then testify on the results of my actions, the officer said, well, are you interested in law enforcement? Is this something you would be interesting? I think you'd make a good cop. Why don't you come on a ride along with us? And at the time,
wow.
San Leandro PD was hiring. They were hiring, and that was the agency that was interacting with on a regular basis. I went on a ride along, and my mind was blown. Mind you, it wasn't necessarily my passion to become a police officer. I wasn't seeking a career in law enforcement, but I will tell you that thank God I did this, because I found the profession that I was built for. I found the field that I was created to be a part of, and we clicked. It was San Leandro and Oakland were going through the process, and once I started with San Leandro, by again excellent mentorship, hey, don't put all your eggs in one basket. This is a neighboring city. Let's apply with both. At the time, Oakland was just coming off of a hiring freeze, and they were hiring a ton of officers, trying to catch up with their attrition. Their process was about 2 times faster than San Leandro, a smaller agency, probably about the size of Tracy. And so they couldn't compete with the amount of people they were bringing in, and they also ran their own academy. Okay. And so I got picked up by Oakland, and that was all she wrote. There was no looking back at that point. I went through my career there almost 20 years, thinking I would actually retire from that department. I so loved what I do, and the people that I was able to work with, and the experiences that I was able to engage in, the people I was able to help, the different assignments that it's like no other profession.
Yeah.
So I had a very full career at Oakland.
And then you decided to come over the hill.
Yeah. So, sometimes it's just about timing and opportunity. I didn't expect that I would leave. Honestly, I didn't expect that I would be leaving the Oakland Police Department. But I will tell you, because of the pace of that department, because of the volume of work, because of the level of activity, because of the oversight, it pushed us to work extremely hard and be extremely proficient at what we do.
Yeah.
And in my last assignment, after having worked a number of assignments as the Internal Affairs Division Commander, I think I worked that assignment about 2 years before, separating. That was sort of the last piece of the puzzle for me in well-roundedness. I've done all the assignments there were when it comes to Bureau of Field Operations, patrol, and task force, and specialized units, undercover work. I was part of the SWAT team in every rank, from officer to lieutenant. I can't remember if I was as a captain, as a commander, because my assignment as an IA commander conflicted with being a tactical commander. In any case, right. It was part of me also, just being part of that, the tactics and policing. And so right. Once I was assigned to Internal Affairs Division, it gave me an opportunity to really understand policy, supervision at every level, working very closely with the independent monitoring team, with the police commission, working with our executive staff, working with the city manager's office, the mayor's office, the council. Gave me an opportunity to interact with so many different aspects of policing right. At a different level. When the opportunity presented itself to move on and leave the department and become a chief of the department, I hesitated at first, thinking, is it for me? Is that what I want? And after again talking with my mentors and with the agency that reached out to me, after having some long talks, I said, okay, I think I'm ready. I can do this. Yeah. I've had my reps in Oakland. I think this is something I can do. And mind you, the area that I last commanded as an area commander in Oakland is about the size of Tracy. I mean, at any given moment during peak hours, with tourism and business, I think that West Oakland swelled to a population of 150, 200,000 people.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. So this is just like in your wheelhouse.
Yeah. And that's just one of several areas in that city. So
yeah,
managing personnel and, understanding people and being relational and being fair and being consistent were all things that, I was raised to do in Oakland. So it was fitting when I was able to step away and then take on the chief's position here at Tracy.
Well, and what a ground to learn from. Oakland has its own reputation, and I know there's so many things that go on. So it's, I know the community appreciates you being here. So I just want to make sure to tell you that.
I'm thankful to be here.
Yes, we are glad you and your whole family are here. So now tell us a little bit about Noble, because I know you talked a little bit about Noble and what they do. And I want to say it's National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives.
Yes.
And you were a chapter president.
Correct.
For the San Francisco Bay Area chapter.
That's correct.
So, and I know you talked a little bit about, how you interacted with the kids, but can you talk a little bit about, how it informed your personal and professional career working with Noble?
Yeah. Again, when you talk about mentorship and development, that was a pivotal part of my career as well. I was able to engage with professionals that weren't from my department. It was a mixed batch. It's in the Bay Area. There were executive members from the San Francisco Police Department, the Richmond Police Department, Barrett Police Department, Hayward. I mean, you name it. It was made up of leaders of all these organizations who looked like me, who went through the same experiences that I went through. And it wasn't exclusive. It wasn't just Black law enforcement executives. It was open to everyone, but the vast majority were Black law enforcement executives. And, I was able to learn from a lot of the lessons that they'd been through and listen to their advice. And they were very giving and the way they interacted with me was selfless. They did it for the purposes of seeing someone who I feel like I am is ethical, is moral, and wants to do right by the people he serves. And I think they wanted to help build me up. And likewise, I was taught to give that back. So as I grew in the organization, it was my job, it was my responsibility to teach someone else what I learned. And they kind of referred it to each one, teach one.
Right.
I don't just gain the experience. I don't just gain the mentorship. I don't just take it and hoard it. It's the responsibility to help develop others around me, to help bring on future leaders, to help bring on other members to help us with the mission of being the conscience of law enforcement, of being that sort of sounding board and calling out injustice or speaking up on behalf of the disadvantaged or engaging with the youth. That was a huge part of what we did. Mm-hmm. Programs like the Law in Your Community, where on our own time, it's not on my work time, on my own time, on the weekends, much like I do here, because I'm passionate about what I do, we would go to churches and community centers and host these training seminars, these training sessions for a few hours where we taught young people the right way to interact with law enforcement so that you leave a situation alive, so that you understand why an officer is telling you, don't move your hands. Keep your hands on the steering wheel. Don't get out of the car and run. If you have a dispute with an officer, here is how you resolve that dispute. You talk to a parent, you talk to an elderly, you talk to a clergy, you contact the police department if you have to, get their name and the badge number. So we wanted to make sure that we were filling the gap that we saw in our society. Some of the young people in Oakland, I've been able to, it's a different environment here in Tracy, weren't getting that education in school. They weren't getting it at home. Mm-hmm. They were fending for themselves. They were trying to figure out how they're going to eat. Right. So we felt like it was our responsibility to help with that outreach, with that education. And so we built programs where we went into the high schools, and over, I believe it's a 10-week period, we had structured programs on the Law in Your Community, separate from the couple of hour sessions that we would go out into the community. And one of the first times we actually ever put on the extended program was in Stockton. I was a lieutenant in Oakland, part of the chapter, and Stockton had received the grant during Eric Jones's time. And we would travel out here. I don't know if it was once a month or every couple of weeks, and we would put on this course for the students, and they loved it. And at the end, we were blown away because they had a project at the very end where they would now have a town hall, like a forum in the auditorium. And these Stockton students came up with the idea of a Q&A by way of text. So you had some anonymity, and the text would go directly to the panelists. And they came up with this, and we were so amazed that they learned so much and were so creative at the very end. We said, this has to go on. We have to continue this program. Right. And then we went back to Oakland and we did it there. And we continue to move initiatives like that. Yeah. To just help empower our young people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's great. Let's pause for a moment. We'll be right back. So speaking of young people then, because I know my husband actually was one of the ones that put together the first kind of liaison community interaction with the police. So we had the Tracy African American Association at that time, and several members of the police and sheriff, if I remember correctly, or highway patrol come and talk. And this was, of course, before the George Floyd situation, murder. But I guess one of the questions I have, so let me ask you about the young people first, because I think, we all kind of, at least in our community, we always refer to the talk that we have to have with our kids. And, there's this history of being questioned and targeted because of race. And I don't know if you mentioned, some of the advice that you give to young people specifically, but I'm sure the advice is really can be, kind of for anyone that's in a situation like that. Is there any advice you can give for folks that are, driving while Black or, whatever, and find themselves in a situation like that? And then two, I wanted to ask you a little bit about what it's like now being a police officer, a Black police officer. And during this time of kind of social injustice and the whole blue lives versus Black lives and all of that. And if you have any thoughts or, things you want to share.
That's a lot to unpack.
I know, right? That's a lot.
But maybe I'll start with the beginning.
Start small. Just give me the kids first.
Let's talk a little bit about the kids. So the talk is real. I have 4 biological kids of my own, and then I have my nieces who I took in after my sister passed away, a set of twins, teenage girls, and then a sophomore in college. I think it's imperative that we educate our kids. The reality is sometimes bad things happen, and at no fault of your own, the number one goal is to get home safe, right?
Absolutely.
And so I think it is important because the reality is that I think there are bad people in every profession. I'd be naive to say that we're perfect, and because I'm a cop, then every cop is doing the right thing. I think history's shown us that no, that's not true. First, and then in this day and age with technology and videos, I think it's even more apparent, right? But what I've shared with young people is, you give respect, you get respect. Number one. So don't be disrespectful. If you're treated in a fashion that you feel is unjust, there's a time and a place to address it. Sometimes it's not in a street when you're stopped in a car, right, or walking down the street. If you feel like you're being targeted, there's a time and a place to address that, because the police do have a certain authority, and you may not have the full picture of what's going on, and they're actually just carrying out their duty, but you feel it's unfair. On the scene at that moment may not necessarily be the time to address that. And I would even go one step further in that we have guidelines, we have principles, and we have policies that we've got to follow. And so if you feel like you're being treated unjustly, ask to speak with a supervisor. I don't feel like I did anything wrong. Can you explain to me what I did? And sometimes it's even that. So why are you stopping me? I don't understand what's going on. I think the average officer is going to take the time to explain to you. And if they don't, then you're, maybe consider, well, this is not the time for me to go any further, but I need to find out more about this. I need to look into this. I don't know, there isn't an agency that I'm aware of in California where they don't have a process for filing a complaint and having an incident investigated. But you have to know your rights, right? I think you have to be educated about that, and don't necessarily go off of what you see on social media and everything that's blasted in the news, because it's not always accurate.
Right.
Most websites, police websites today have all of their policies on it, has all their contact information on there. If you have questions, there are ways to get those questions answered if you don't feel like you're getting it at that moment with that officer. So I say first you have to understand what your rights are. And that was a big part of us doing that course on the law in your community, right? You have to understand the law. You have to understand the authority of an officer. But as a citizen, you also have rights.
Right.
If you haven't broken the law, then you shouldn't be detained unjustly. You shouldn't be arrested without the right criteria being in place. There's recourse for that. So I think for the kids, and part of it is, again, I think there's a gap in education where our young people today are learning faster than I know I was learning, because we had to refer to the Encyclopedia Britannica if we wanted to know what was going on.
You're showing your age now, Chief. You're showing your age.
But today, they have access to everything, all sorts of information, and it's instantaneous. Mm-hmm. So the knowledge is there, but you have to take the time sometimes, just slow down and educate yourself.
Yeah.
And then I think you have to have, if you don't understand, or if there isn't, you don't feel like you're having that right contact with an officer, have someone you can talk to, someone you can trust, a teacher, obviously a parent, an elder, and then say, hey, what can I do? What should I do? Here's what happened. Don't feel like you have to, as a young person, try to answer all the questions, because you may not know.
Yeah.
interestingly enough, I've had this talk recently with the kids over at Tracy High. It was some of the kids you're familiar with at the Black Student Union.
Okay.
And we were having some good dialogue about this, about some of what's being seen on TV and on social media, and what's true and what's false, and what should we believe? What's the real, Chief? So it's always good to have those conversations, because you'd be surprised how much they learn. But then in turn, we learn. We learn that a lot of the perception is word of mouth and third party. Like, these kids have never had a negative interaction with the police.
Right.
But their perception is that all police are bad, and that there's a negative stigma around wearing a uniform, and that I would never become a police officer. But I would offer, if you want to see change, you have to be a part of that. You have to put yourself in that position to help improve the system if you feel like it's unjust. So I think it starts with open dialogue, being open and honest with young people, because they're smart. They know what's going on, and they can tell when someone's being genuine with them, or if they're blowing smoke.
No, that's awesome. So just to make sure I don't skip this part, what is it like for you now in this leadership position, at kind of leading at this time? Because you came into this city right after George Floyd, if I remember correctly.
No, just before.
Just before.
January,
Okay.
Yeah. So
I knew it was close.
COVID and George Floyd. Yeah. So you know what I think it did? I think it brought perspective, because I come from a city, again, and not to go back to Oakland, but I come from a place where there was a lot of civil unrest. There was a lot of protests, a lot of activism. And we had to I think we learned as an organization that you have to listen to people, that you have to reach out early to defuse what could be seen as a conflict that might not even be real, but we have to take it upon ourselves to reach out. Historically, I think we just waited until it came to us. Right. So we learned, in an instance where George Floyd didn't happen here in the city of Tracy, but if someone is upset by it, if they feel troubled by it, it is our job, because we're responsible for public safety, to reach out with those individuals and understand what they're going through and help them through. I mean, they have a constitutional right of free speech and expression, and our responsibility is to protect them as they engage in those constitutional rights. And so I'm of the belief that we are a part of this community. So if there's some sort of unrest or strife, we need to understand why that is, be a part of the solution, not just sit back and wait for it to hit the fan and then try to, come in with the mentality that we're going to bring peace to chaos. Can't do it that way. Yeah. And again, I was fortunate to have gone through a lot of critical incidents, and you've seen it on TV, a lot of civil unrest and a lot of protests and a lot of demonstrations where there were lessons learned that I took away. And the good thing is, this is a healthy, smart, forward-thinking department. And so I think being a Black man as a police officer, I understood some of the challenges. I saw the faces of the young people who were organizing, and they are just trying to explain what they're going through, what their perception is. I was understanding of that. I think that I would like to think that this department was put at ease. I wasn't alarmed by it. I wasn't surprised by it. I've seen it time and time again. It wasn't new for me. And so we approached it very openly, very genuinely caring. I want to know what it is you're trying to say. How can we help you during these times of unrest? I want to make sure that we're partners in this, so it doesn't get to a point where, people are trying to loot, burn things down. That we don't want to get to that point. I don't think you want to get to that point, right, as organizers. So I think that dialogue was huge in the beginning. And nothing happened here. We had some very peaceful demonstrations. Folks were able to speak their truth. Yes. And we were present to make sure that they can do that safely, but far enough away where they can be comfortable and, just try to be adaptable to the situation. I think that's part of it also. I'm naturally an adaptable person. I'm not very rigid. I'm open to new things. I'd like to think I take chances, but I think it comes from a place of comfort, having seen so much
turmoil turmoil.
chaos and turmoil. Yeah. So it
Yeah.
had to get pretty hectic for me to get all worked up and nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think my experience is also as, being raised as, someone from a different country, having to get my citizenship, having had to work on my accent. And, it was a bit more of a struggle for me as a young person transitioning to an American education system, and the reading and the writing. So, I had my own challenges just acclimating to an American culture. It gave me perspective. I came from a very a strong family. When you talk about it takes a village to raise a child, that's what was going on with me. I had 7 aunts that were like my mother, right?
Whoa, 7 aunts.
Yeah. And 2 uncles. We have,
Wow,
big families. And so,
yes,
I knew about checks and balances. And so
right.
it helped to make me who I am when it comes to being a leader of an organization. I think it takes patience, takes understanding, it takes flexibility.
Yeah. Well, and it's so interesting because I look at all of the things that you've been doing to just bring an awareness and a different type of connection with the community. And I know you talk about some of the things. I mean, I keep track of you. So I know you've been working on things like FIRST and mental health, and you've been doing some things with mental health and some, I'll call them contemporary policing. But it's, when people talk about community policing, I always wonder what that means, because shouldn't it always be community? Like, what's the other part? I don't know. So it's interesting to me because I think as you've come here, you now have this ability to really shift and shape things in a different way. So are there things that you're maybe, I'll say, most proud of at this point, knowing that you've been in here for a couple of years and got your feet wet?
Great question. And I think the question that comes up every so often, like, what is community policing? And it's really not just any one thing. I think sometimes it's sort of looked as or seen or taken as a gimmick, or you're just doing this one event and that satisfies community policing. For me, it's more of a philosophy. For me, it's an organizational philosophy that we are a part of this community. And each and every one of us, whether it's a patrol officer, an animal services officer, a code enforcement officer, our records dispatcher, our records specialist, or our dispatcher, has to understand that we're a full service police department. And community policing is about customer service, whether you're talking to someone, whether you're presenting yourself, whether you're being a problem solver, whether you're being a forward thinker. It's not any one thing. It's a whole slew of things. And so to me, it's more about mindset, right? Yeah. When I see, and this is what makes me most proud, when I talk about community engagement, we do a lot of things. Like you said, we engage in a lot of sporting activities, because that's the best way to sometimes reach children. Their parents want them in sports. They want to be in sports. Well, we also love sports. And so let's connect around that. Community nonprofit groups who their purpose is to address the whether it's disparate treatment, the lack of services, but their mission is to enhance the community. We want to do that, whether it's the Tracy African American Association, Tracy Sunrise Rotary, the Lions Club. I mean, I can go on and on. Southside Association. All of those organizations are about community enhancement, about community building. It is our responsibility to partner with them. And as a philosophy, separate from just me doing it, when I see my command staff, when I see my officers, when I see our animal services also engaging with those organizations and looking at ways to better enhance communication, to work on projects down the road and say, hey, we're a part of that. That's community policing to me. It's less of what I want and more of our department understanding that we serve this community in every aspect that we can.
Yeah.
I mean, I can go on and on about it.
But that's like 24. I mean, you literally, I can see you at any restaurant or at a park or wherever. I mean, you are literally out there all the time.
I'm passionate about what I do. I told you from the very beginning, I love this profession. I love this work.
It's almost like, I mean, you are infusing like who you are into what this community becomes, which I think is what we hope for everyone. But it's awesome as a police chief to watch not only some of the things you've done in terms of like just recruiting and who you have, on the police force and, the promotions and, all the connections that you have, even just in terms of communicating those. Because I think sometimes maybe you have people doing great things, but nobody knows about it.
Right. You're so right about that. And so one of our initiatives was to get our message out, to have a platform where, separate from our webpage, which we've had for a long time, telling the story of our people, right? Not only the engagement where we are connecting with the community, partnering with nonprofits, acting more as a force multiplier to a lot of the great things that they're doing. It seems like a lot, but a lot of things have been going on here for a very long time. We're making a more assertive effort to partner with a lot of people. And so we're not recreating the wheel.
Right.
One of the things we did was create a position, our public information officer's position. It started off as something where one of my community preservation officers sort of transitioned over to help me create this platform where we can tell our story. We can share the good news about promotions and new hires and different things that we're trying to do and accomplish, and even great arrests. And that's a huge part of it, right? We're about public safety, but a place, to be able to be timely in responding to people, because people had questions, and oftentimes they'll send those questions by way of social media and no one was there to respond to it. Now, we can't respond to every question. I think sometimes some people aren't going to be satisfied no matter how much hard work and how dedicated we are. Some people are just not going to get it, but we want to be timely in our responses to people. I pride myself on that. I make that a point for my command staff and the officers, be able to answer people's questions, be timely in doing it, make sure people know that they're heard and that we're addressing the issues that are pressing for them.
Yeah.
We've gone through sort of a transition of who's the creative, who's going to handle that platform, who's going to handle social media, Instagram, Nextdoor, Twitter, Facebook. We did a recruitment and we had a lot of interest. And so we ended up selecting someone who was at the time hired at the fire department, believe it or not. It was already a city employee who was energized and was thoughtful and creative. That's one of the things I was looking for, creativity, because we talked about this new position that I didn't really have fully formed, that was being built. And then this young person, this energized person who can help what we call build the ship at sea, right? We didn't have a full idea of what it would be, but I knew with the right direction that we can make it what it is. And she's done that for us. We had someone who had left the city who started help me build this model and was doing a great job, went on to better opportunity. Now Caitlin's here with us, partnered with my chief of staff, Sergeant Mario Izzet, who are doing a phenomenal job in getting content and pushing out that content on a regular basis to keep our community informed, let them know that we are out there working for them.
Yeah.
We're out there trying to build strong relationships.
Well, it's working, because I know I'm seeing it. So I'm hoping a lot of other folks are as well. So I'm going to ask you one last question because I know one of the things, because you have such a broad experience across one of the things that, you've even mentioned kind of this, you wanted to be an engineer. So that gave me some insight into your mindset. But in terms of, like, we talked about contemporary policing, but you also have a whole technology kind of focus as well.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about that? Because I mean, for Tracy, I was like, okay, Tracy, we're trying to do something.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. I'm a big believer in working smarter, not harder. And I'm fortunate that we get a lot of support here. It's one of the benefits of being here. You can see the impact of your initiatives very quickly. There's technology out there that not only is, I think, fiscally responsible because it costs a lot less than, hiring a new officer to try to do something that technology can do faster and more efficiently. And this is not whether or not we need more officers or more technology. It's a combination of it. But There's technology, much like the license plate reader systems that we just recently had installed around this city. Part of it is making bad actors understand, making them aware that we don't take crime lightly, that we're very serious on following up as soon as possible on that sort of nefarious activity, and that you will get arrested by the Tracy Police Department, right? But if we can prevent it, we'd much rather prevent it. So don't come to our city and do the crime.
Right.
So technology, it works in a number of ways. There's prevention, right? We're going to make known, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because we're getting ready to put out some messaging about this new system we have here. There's intervention, right? We want to intercept bad actors, and enforcement. We want to be able to follow up sooner than later. This system is proven in other cities and other jurisdictions. We've used it ourselves to solve multiple cases. It's effective.
Yeah.
And so what I want to do is put our community at ease that we are being thoughtful. When you talk about not only the license plate reader technology, the way we centralize our information through CAD RMS. We have a system called MART 43 because analytics is huge. We have to have good data, good evidence to direct how we police, how we provide public safety in this city. And if you don't have the facts, if you don't have the baseline of what's going on, you don't have good reports that you can see on a timely basis automatically, right? Not something you have to put a lot of manpower to generate. It's hard to be fully effective. Yeah. And so we work with a system that sends out a lot of analytics. We want to be timely, but we also want to know trends. We want to know where those trends are occurring, the times that they're occurring, the days that they're occurring, so that we can allocate resources accordingly. This system does that for us.
Yes.
And then some. And then it's also very transferable, right? We can do a lot of the work from our phone, our cell phones that interact with these systems, right? We're dealing with a younger generation who are very tech savvy. And so I think we have to acclimate to that. We have to adjust to their needs. I think it makes us a better, a more functional organization.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Wow. Well, I might have to have you come back, because this was a lot. This was good. And I have, more things we could talk about. But I really do appreciate all the things that you're bringing to the city. And it's wonderful to see your leadership and the benefits and effects of that coming through. So I want to give you some kudos and say congratulations on your NAACP Freedom Fighter Award.
I appreciate that. Totally unexpected. And if I can add, I appreciate the kudos. And the fact is, I'm not the one doing the work. I might light the spark, and I have more ideas than I care to mention. But I have a very, very energized, very engaged team. We have in all aspects of this organization, people who really want to do well. A lot of them live here, and I don't live here, I work here, but I'm a member of this community. They care about this community, and so they come to work passionate, trying to do the right thing. And I encourage that. It's sort of initiative-based thinking, and they are the ones who are getting the work done, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I'm proud.
But we see it. I mean, I was out at a festival or something not long ago, and my little 5-year-old grandson, he really wants to be a police officer.
Oh, nice. I'm I'm always recruiting.
Yes. So he keeps and they your officers were out there I want to say Officer Mario. I got to give him a shout out because he's like the dancing guy.
Yeah, he's
dancing all the time.
Pretty energized.
But they gave him a ride, and I mean, he was so excited just to be able to interact with police in that way. Because I think, sometimes they think they're not supposed to. So it was awesome.
And we encourage that. When you talk about community-oriented policing, that to me is what it is. It's not about me being there. It's not about the captain and lieutenant being there. Our officers should feel comfortable engaging just like that.
Yeah.
Taking the time to make a kid smile and happy, encouraging them to be a police officer when they grow up.
That's it. Well, thank you again for being here, you and your whole team. So I'll give a shout out. Definitely shout out to my cohort, Melyssa, my own namesake, who I know supports you because she's awesome too. So thanks again, Chief Sekou Millington.
Very welcome.
Really enjoyed you and looking forward to hearing more from you.
I'd be happy to come back and talk with you some more. There's a lot more that we're doing here.
Just scratch the surface.
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks for joining me on the Jali podcast. Please subscribe so you won't miss an episode. See you next week.